So, I thought I would try something different. On this YouTube channel, we normally do games, and I thought this time we'd try something different. Talking about games! For me, being a child of the 70s, or not a child from the 70s, technically a child of the 80s, born in the 70s, late 70s, I've been very fortunate to be pretty much at the beginning of where modern games started, as such, back from the times of the ZX Spectrum. So, I'm recording this live, and I'm going to try not to edit it at all, and we'll see. I mean, it might just be a 10-minute talk, might not, but just try to remember, like, how I remember the 80s. I think that's what I'm trying to say. I mean, I have fond memories of the 80s. I mean, I remember being where I first lived in Inverurie. I really do remember certain things like watching Star Wars on Christmas Day on ITV. Sure, it was called ITV back then. Grampian TV, actually. Grampian TV. And yeah, I remember before we moved away from Inverurie, I remember waking up. I remember going downstairs, and I remember the joy of opening up presents. Especially, I said before '84, it was all Star Wars, to be honest. My dad used to take me into Aberdeen, and we used to go to a place called the Rubber Shop. And there's actually photos on Google now of the Rubber Shop, and it's exactly how I remember it. I remember going into the Rubber Shop. It was kind of like a glass display outside, and you could go two ways. It was kind of like it was three glass displays, one on the left, one on the right, and there was one in the middle, and you could go round the middle one, as far as I remember. And behind that there was two double doors. You went in, it's like a long corridor. And then towards the back there was some stairs. You went up them stairs, and that's where all the Star Wars toys was. And I remember saying to my dad, "Oh, I want that, 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 I want that." Pretty much everything. Anything to do with Star Wars. Star Wars crazy. And I remember one Christmas day waking up, going downstairs. This bit might not be 100%, but I think my mum used to give us big massive like sock stockings, whatever they're called. And I remember one Christmas day there was a massive box, and I'm like, okay. I mean, like, well, I was a kid, I put it to go. Okay, I'm like, oh my god. So I opened up and I got an Attack, which is actually behind my TV just now. And you might have seen it. If anybody follows me on like Instagram or Facebook, you'll probably seen that Attack. You've probably seen it in some of the streams as well, actually, because some of the earlier streams I actually had it behind my couch. But now it lies behind my TV, peering around the corner at me, wondering when it's going to be used again. So, yeah, Star Wars was a big kind of part of my life when I was a kid. I was never really a Star Trek fan. I mean, I like Star Trek now, but I was always Star Wars. Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars. Every Christmas time, ITV, Star Wars. Good old days. So anyway, getting on with the story, that kind of brought us into the kind of toys, you mean, back from the 80s that I used to play with. There was that and He-Man. I've still got most of my He-Man figures, except from, there's a couple of Star Wars figures that my brother's destroyed over the years, and I keep pestering him about it, because it really ticked me off for years. We had a Boba Fett figure, and my brother decided to, when he was in his rebel kind of teenage phase, when he used to smoke and all that, he still does kind of smoke, but anyway, the point is, he actually took a lighter to Boba Fett's head. So I now have Boba Fett without a head, which is kind of eerie because Jango Fett lost his head, in what was it called? Attack of the Clones. Yeah, Attack of the Clones. So it's like my brother knew something was going to happen to not Boba Fett but Jango Fett. I mean, Boba's father. I said Boba Fett. Is it? It's Boba or Boba? I never remember. I call him Boba Fett. I know they say Boba now, but it's Boba to me. Anyway, so yeah. We had all that. We had the mask toys. Some of you might have seen my mask toys on Instagram. I still love the Rhino toy, which is a massive truck. Kind of looks a bit like Optimus Prime, but way cooler. So I've still got that. It's actually, I think it's still in this flat. So yeah. So from toys anyway, that's what leads on to computers. And I remember pretty much about 85. I remember my dad saying, no, we've got this Spectrum, and I think he had it for a little while, but he gave it to me, and that was my first kind of forte as such into computer games. And I mean, I had a grandstand computer before that, or well, it wasn't a computer, sorry. It was I don't know what the hell it is, to be honest. A grandstand computer. I'll just call it a computer. It's not a computer. It's more of a console. It's pretty much how you play Pong. The old like blocks on screen that go up and down, go boop boop, and all that kind of shit. And yeah, I played that. I've still got that machine. It just doesn't work at the moment. I tried to turn it on and it wouldn't turn on, and the power button snapped off. So I need to get it fixed. I think it's because it's mostly all capacitors and stuff like that. There's not really a computer inside it. There's no memory and all that, as far as I know. It's literally just something else. I mean, I'd have to research into it, but I know it's not a console. It's not really a computer. It's something else. But went from that basically to a Spectrum 48K, and I mean, don't get me wrong, my dad used to go, he knew everybody that knew how to get games and all. We had so much copies of games. So, no, it started off, there was Galaxians. I remember that. It still scares me, that game. Just the noise of the spaceships coming down to kill you. We also had games like Harrier Attack, which I still love to this day. I still can't play it. I still have no clue what you're supposed to do in that game, except from fly and blow up things. Like, go across the screen, and you get to like a little city and little puffs of air appear on the screen because the artillery are firing at you. Excuse me. And went from there to the likes of Halls of the Things. That game still scares me to this day, and I'll hopefully put some kind of background imagery around this audio. But that game scared the shit out of me for some reason. There was like a little triangle thing that kind of looked like Jello or jelly. Not the same thing, or like a Dalek, but it didn't look like a Dalek, and it used to scare the shit out of me when I was a kid, that is. And I used to run out of the room, then go to the next room to hope that I wouldn't get another one of those. Just silly things when you're a kid. I mean, like going back to like TV and film, I used to be scared shitless from the Daleks, like, which I used to call Daleks, Daleks, by the way. I never called them Daleks; it was Daleks. It wasn't until I was in my 20s I realised I'd got it wrong. I was maybe in my 30s when Doctor Who came back, and it's Daleks. Oh, okay. Yes, things like that, and Zelda from Terrorhawk scared the shit out of me as a kid. And to be honest, it's still freaky to this day. I'll put something hopefully in the background to show you what Zelda looks like. Zelda used to scare the shit out of me when I was a kid. That and Daleks. But there are a couple of games on the Spectrum that you look at it now and you're like, why the hell did you get scared of those things? But when you're a kid, your mind goes nuts. Really, really goes nuts. After that, my dad got a 48K Plus, which is the plastic looking one. It looks more like a 128K toast rack, but it's not. It's just literally a 48K, but I'm going to probably get this wrong, but I know the 48K now. I didn't realise this when I was a kid, but I'll tell you a story in a minute about why I'm going to talk about this, but the 48K had internal sound, and I forgot about this until I rebought a 48K about 2 years ago off eBay. A guy was selling it, saying it doesn't work. I'm like, I'll buy it. Literally took it home, plugged it up to my TV, and it worked. So it's obvious he didn't understand the ways of old technology, how, I mean, HDMI does not work with composite, or aerial leads, or anything like that. I mean, like, I've still got a Sony 1080p TV that runs old technology. It's got SCART connections, it's got phono leads, or whatever. It's got all that kind of stuff in the back of it. So I can actually still play my Amiga or my Spectrums or my Commodore 64 or anything from pre-HDMI. And I'm not joking. That Sony TV is outlasted 4 Samsung TVs and two 3D LG TVs, 3D TVs that is. And this Sony TV still plays everything, and it's also got a ratio corrector, so I can play it in 4.3 proper aspect ratio. Love that freaking TV, I tell you. So I'm still trying to find a Mitsubishi TV. It's a Mitsubishi portable TV. It's about between 14 to 16 inches. I've seen it on eBay, but the guy or girl has not actually said if it works or not. So I'm not taking that chance to go all the way down there to pick up something that doesn't work. And going from Scotland to England is a big task because it's a lot of miles. So where was I? where is it? I'm trying to remember where I was going. Yeah, so I got a 48K plus. Now, going back to kind of, I went off tangent just now. I mean, I'm talking about something, but I'm not. So basically, what I was saying is the 48K came with inbuilt speaker sound. It didn't go through the TV. It came from the actual computer. And can correct me if I'm wrong in chat or in the comments, but I think the 48K Plus had internal sound, which went through to your TV. I could be wrong. I mean, I have two 48K Pluses, so I could technically test this out. I just have to go to the storage locker and pick it up. But we went from that to a 128K Plus 2A. Now, I was lucky enough to get the Living Daylights pack, which came with a gun. I still to this day don't understand how that gun works. I still never got that game to work. I never understood that game at all. But the 128K Plus 2A, which I had, the Living Daylights pack, oh my god. Going from a 48K to a 128K, you wouldn't think there would be much of a difference, but having 3-channel sound instead of mono, oh my god, that was great. And I think it's, when you get to it, a 128K Plus 2A, it just makes everything better. I mean, I understand people are going to say, but it's not a Sinclair Spectrum, it's an Amstrad computer that was bought over by, they bought over Sinclair. Yes, I know. I would love to have a 128K toast rack, but they're going for stupid money just now. But having that back in the 80s was life-changing. And the funny thing is, some of the games that I own, like I own like Renegade, I didn't realise until a couple of years ago that Renegade, I know it had music, because I remember playing it with music. I remember the first time I put on the 128K and heard Renegade with music, and I'm like, oh my god, this game has music. But one thing I didn't know is, it's got an extra move, where you can actually punch a guy or someone and flip him over your shoulder. I didn't know about that until about 2-3 years ago. I didn't even know you could do that in the game. And that's why in my intro to my channel now, there's a bit of Renegade that's shown in the background, and you actually see him flipping the guy over his shoulder. I thought I better finish that sentence because it could be really taken the wrong way if I didn't. But seeing that, it's just like, oh my god, I'm still finding things out about the Spectrum that I didn't know about. Which is crazy. I mean, the Spectrum is the 80s. This is now the 20s. You mean the 2020s. It's not the 1980s. And to see something like that, and it just makes you wonder what else I've missed. I mean, if any of you know of any good games that I might not know of, please put them in chat and I'll look into them, and I'll even reply if I can. If I'm not lazy enough, just to say, okay, yeah, I haven't seen that game, or I'll tell you if I've seen it or not. Excuse me. So, one sec, I'm just going to have some hot chocolate. I'm in the mood for hot chocolate today. I've got my Lilo and Stitch mug that I got for my birthday from my friend. So, where was I going with this? So, yeah, going from a 48K to a 48K Plus, then to a 128K was like leaps and bounds. Now, going back to the 48K, you know, I said this about games. We're not even talking about Game Jam, huh? Anyway, and I'm over the 10-minute mark already. So, the 48K I had was, like, life-changing for me. It's kind of like nowadays. I mean, like, most of you guys probably were brought up with consoles. I mean, I know there's a couple of years that I know are roughly my age, and you were brought up when the computers kind of came into fashion for the first time. We're generation 1 basically. Some of you are like generation 5 or 6. When you started up with consoles like the PlayStation 1 or Nintendo 64. But starting off with a Spectrum has been probably the best thing ever, because I've seen everything change through the years. And one thing I always regretted, I'm finally going back to what I was going to talk about like 10 minutes ago, pardon me, was that I started off with a 48K, and I remember in secondary school they were talking about, like, you have to discuss something in computing class, and I'm like, okay. So I took in my 48K to show everybody what it looked like. Now, this is the 90s we're talking about when I took in my Spectrum, and I never really used my Spectrum in the 90s because I was an idiot. I didn't expect retro to become a thing, because back then there wasn't such thing as retro. You mean everything was now and then? I mean, I was into my Amiga back then. At school we were using Archimedes, and we kind of used the BBC Micro, but that was like out of fashion because the Archimedes was far superior. It was more on par with the Amiga, but the Amiga was still the better computer, I should say, to me. Anyway, going back to the story, I took in my Spectrum into computing class, and then I did the most stupidest thing ever. I actually took it apart. I actually took my Spectrum apart. I still, to this day, regret doing that. I mean, I literally destroyed my Spectrum because I thought I'd never use it again. And yes, I was a teenager, and you don't think things through like you do nowadays. Nowadays, I understand you do not get rid of anything. I mean, don't be a hoarder. I am. And I destroyed my first ever computer. And I still regret it to this day. And it took a very long time to get over that, I tell you.